Fred Perry is more synonymous with his iconic sportswear line than for the 14 major titles he won on the tennis court, perhaps because he was born into working class roots. The upper crust of the then British society and the upwardly mobile middle class happened to find status in tennis and were cool to warm to Fred Perry's hard charging and relentless style. After all, the men's singles championship had the word gentleman attached to it, and Perry's game was far from gentlemanly. It took decades, but in 1984, the tennis establishment, yearning for a British Wimbledon champion since Fred Perry last won the title in 1936, erected a bronze statue at the All England Club to commemorate the 50th anniversary of the first time Fred Perry won the Wimbledon title in 1934. It wasn't until Andy Murray won the US Open in 2012 that Great Britain could once again claim a major singles men's champion 76 years after Fred Perry won his last of three US national championship trophies. Furthermore, Andy Murray's win in 2013 allowed Britain to finally toast another Wimbledon gentlemen's singles champion, 77 years after Fred Perry claimed the last of his three consecutive victories at the All England Club. He won the title in 1934, 1935 and 1936. Fred Perry, who had long, grooved and reliable ground strokes, was the first male player in history to win singles titles in each of the four majors. Today we refer to this achievement as a career Grand Slam as opposed to a Grand Slam which is earned when all titles are won in the same calendar year, something which Don Budge achieved for the first time in 1938. You can check out my video on Don Budge. By tennis standards, Fred Perry was a late bloomer because he did not start playing the game till he was 18 years old. While he was learning the intricacies of lawn tennis, he played table tennis with great aplomb, winning the 1929 World Table Tennis Championship. He was one of the favorite questions that every sports quiz enthusiast encountered because he had this unique achievement of winning the World Championship not just in lawn tennis but also in table tennis. Once he dedicated himself to the bigger racket and larger playing surface, Fred Perry was a formidable opponent, largely because he combined his athletic skills with competitive zeal. He was not a powerful hitter, but he moved on the court like a cobra, and his running forehand was a shot players tried to emulate. He proved that one could play attacking tennis without having to serve and volley on every point. Fred Perry was a fashionable all-court player who employed a continental grip that he never changed between hitting forehands and backhands. He had tremendous hand-eye coordination, solid strokes, punchy volleys, and a reliable overhead and serve. But it was his supreme confidence that provided him with the winning edge. He enjoyed a tight and productive 8-year amateur career from 1929 to 1936 before turning professional from 1937 to 1956. Fred Perry won his first major on American soil at the 1933 US Nationals, rallying from 2-1 down to stun Jack Crawford 6-3, 11-13, 4-6, 6-love, 6-1. The thumping of Crawford in the last two sets served notice that Fred Perry was the real deal, and he reinforced that perception with reality by winning a consecutive US title in 1934 with yet another 5-set victory, 6-4, 6-3, 3-6, 1-6, 8-6 over American star Wilmer Allison. Crawford would fall to Perry twice more in major finals, in the 1934 Australian Championships 6-3, 7-5, 6-1 and Wimbledon Championships 6-3, 6-love, 7-5. In 1934, Fred Perry was only one major away from earning a calendar year Grand Slam, but he faced a loss in the quarterfinals at the French Open. Of course, it was not called French Open at that time. I'm sure it was called the French Championships. This is, of course, before the Open era. The working class fans that were fortunate enough to get a ticket to Wimbledon adored Perry. Note, working class fans that were fortunate enough to get a ticket to Wimbledon. Fred Perry was one of them, and though he wasn't always a crowd favorite with the majority of the people in attendance, Fred Perry still had a love affair with the major he won 5 times. Fred Perry first competed at Wimbledon in 1929 and was a semi-finalist in 1931. He came of age in 1934, defeating Crawford in straight sets and polished off German Gottfried von Kram similarly in 1935 6-2, 6-4, 6-4 and in 1936 6-1, 6-1, 6-love. The latter was earned in 45 minutes in one of the quickest and most decisive victories in major tournament history. At his home major, Fred Perry holds the records for most titles won without losing a set, 3, and his 62 consecutive sets won from 1934 to 1936 remains a record. As the number 2 seed, Fred Perry once again beat number 1 seed von Kram at the French in 1935, 6-3, 3-6, 6-1, 6-3, the third time the German lost to Perry in a major final. Von Kram prohibited Perry from winning yet another French in 1936, outlasting the Brit with a 6-love, 2-6, 6-2, 2-6, 6-love marathon victory. Fred Perry tacked on 6 major doubles titles, 2 in men's doubles and 4 playing mixed doubles. He and compatriot Pat Hughes captured the 1933 French and 1934 Australian championships. In mixed play, he won 4 titles with 3 different partners. The 1932 French with Betty Nuttall, the 1932 US Nationals with Sarah Palfrey, and back-to-back Wimbledon championships in 1935 and 1936 with Dorothy Round Little. Fred Perry was a Davis Cup team member from 1931 to 1936, helping the British win 4 consecutive titles from 1933 to 1936. The 3-2 victory over France in 1933 was particularly important as it ended a 21-year winning drought and ended France's bid for a 7th consecutive Davis Cup championship. Fred Perry had come back from dropping the first set and being 2 set points down in the second set to defeat Andre Merlin 4-6, 8-6, 6-2, 7-5. From 1931 to 1936, Perry was ranked in the world top 10. Of course, the rankings back then were not as reliable as they are now. He turned pro in 1937 and won the US Pro Championship in 1938 and 1941 and was a finalist in 1939 and 1940. In his autobiography, Jack Kramer ranked Fred Perry one of the top 6 players in the history of tennis, a fitting assessment for a player who became the first international inductee in the International Tennis Hall of Fame.